Hey, I'm Kent Brown, Illinois Sports Information Director. Welcome to my office for the last 23 years. This is where the magic happens. I feel like this is MTV Cribs, but I got a lot of stuff here that's accumulated for 23 years here. You come in, you immediately see this little red doll that was a gift that we received. No real great place to store it over there, and so he's been a fixture around here for many years, and it really kind of creeps people out, and it keeps a lot of people who don't want to just sit here and have to be stared at by Little Red. Got this really cool picture of Red Grange, and on the back, Red signed it. It said, "After my last football game with the Chicago Bears versus the New York Giants, January 1934 in Los Angeles." This picture up top is from 1929. It was an Illinois Army game, which was a big game. Illinois was coming off a national championship and two straight Big Ten championships in 27 and 28. The stadium had just completed with the horseshoe end zone, and then here's actually a ticket from that game. I've also got a panoramic photo of the 1947 Rose Bowl game, which was between Illinois and UCLA, the first Big Ten, Pac-10 at the time, Rose Bowl game. 1929, the Illinois went on a Japanese baseball tour. They took a train across the northern United States. Every time they'd stop in a town, they'd play an exhibition game against that town's best team. Took a ship to Japan. And this is one of the baseballs that came back from that Japanese series. And here's a signed baseball from May of 1906. And this was an Illinois Michigan game, and it has the lineups written on the ball. This football is actually my personal. I was given that as a kid. I was probably 10 years old when I was given that football by my brother. Over the years, at some point in time when I first started my career, I started having some of the better players autograph it. And so there's a random number of players, but I usually pick like an all Big Ten, somebody who was going to the NFL, better players. And so I see Mo Gardner on there, see Ken Dilger from the early 90s, Dana Howard, who won the Buckus, Jeff George, Kevin Hardy. I had Devin Witherspoon, Sidney Brown sign it. I mean, it's full of autographs of basically during my my tenure. This is a Grange clock with Red and his wife Muggs that hung in their house. Here's a great collection of old, very valuable homecoming pins. It looks like the earliest one is around 1922, and the last one here sometime around 1941. This is a letter written on stationery from the Hotel Century in New York City, but it's a letter written to Bob Zuppke asking for some help in identifying All-American football players. But it's signed by John Heisman. That's several years actually before the Heisman Trophy even came into existence. This trophy was from the 1920 Big Ten track championships. This was found by a guy who was going through looking for recyclables at the city dump and noticed that this trophy was kind of sticking out from underneath it. He said it was an engine in the dump. So he pulled it out and read it and noticed what it was, and he actually, because it's pewter, he was able to reshape it and gave it back to us. He really thought it belonged back at the University of Illinois where it was won. Got a whole bookshelf full of books. This was a picture taken with Pop Warner and Bob Zuppke. They had hosted a coaches camp, school for coaches, one summer in 1928. And so those two are pictured right there. I'd like to know who all these other guys were, because I'm sure there's some amazing names there. This is a Grange painting, watercolor that he did, and he titled it "You Scrubs." So it's obviously these guys sitting over on the sideline, and I don't know if the coach really felt like they were ever going to be players, but he called them scrubs. A lot of my old credentials and tickets, my daughter put that together for me. This is a old Rose Bowl from 1964 Rose Bowl. Here's a 1984 Rose Bowl pennant. Here's the most recent pennant from the ReliaQuest Bowl. Got Brandon Paul's 43-point performance against Ohio State in 2012. Darren Williams' shot against Arizona 2005, from 1989 at the Final Four in Seattle. There's my head right there. I still have hair. You can see it. This is right before tip-off. Autographed Hall of Fame sheet from the first Hall of Fame class that we put together in 2017. This is one of my favorite photos ever because it's Kenny Battle and Nick Anderson walking off with Coach Henson off the floor after we defeated Syracuse to go to the 1989 Final Four. And this is my view as I walked off the floor as well. I was with the photographer Mark Jones, and so in my mind's eye, that's always my memory. And so to get that picture, I always thought was pretty cool. One of my favorite Illini, Mike Hopkins, safety and academic All-American, became an astronaut. So Astro Illini, Mike Hopkins did 2 tours on the International Space Station as an astronaut. This is the jersey that he took it up to space in his second trip to the space station. Catcher's mitt used for catching back-to-back no-hitters. Dan Ingram was the catcher, and so he played baseball, graduated in 1976. Back-to-back no-hitters. This is the catcher's mitt, and one of the balls from the no-hitters. Mikel LaShore, one of our great running backs. The best part of that picture is the background with myself, Derek Neal doing the fist pump, Victor Cortez back there, Jay Streves in that, but Mikel signed that as well. Red Grange poster. Sports Illustrated in the late 60s did a series of sports greats, and they had them all signed. And this is one of the ones that they handed out, or they sold as part of the series. And so there was a limited number of those, and so I have one of those there. Extra large size of the Sports Illustrated cover with Dee Brown. In the lobby at the Final Four in 1989, they had these big placards set up around the lobby, and a few of those found their way back to Champaign. These are all the players autographed. The distance sign 405, that was the distance to center field at Old Illinois Field, where Beckman Institute's at now. That one's still hanging around. 1986 Brigham Young Hawaii Classic Champions Trophy. I just love that trophy. That's one of the best trophies that we've got. Here's a plaque from the Intercollegiate Championships, the indoor, the water relay at the swimming championships in 1913, won by the University of Illinois. That thing is in pretty bad shape. I had them actually put that back together so it would stay in one piece. So Jeff Jacobs was a member of the 1984 cross-country team, and in the race in the Big Ten Championships lost a shoe, kicked a shoe, and so instead of just running with one, he kicked the second shoe and finished the race with just wearing these socks. And so the team has signed him, and still has obviously the original mud caked on there. I've got a story on almost everything in this office. Can't wait to have a really nice display area where we can show some Illinois history. Thanks for coming.